Hello, in this short video I'm going to talk to you about the Victoria County History Project as an example of knowledge exchange. I'm Dr Ruth Slatter and I am one of the co-general editors of the Victoria County History, often referred to as the VCH. Okay, so first, what is the Victoria County History, or the VCH? So the VCH is an 126-year-old project to write the history of every place in England, and it now functions as a national network of place-based research. So these histories that are researched and written for the VCH cover lots of different topics, including settlement history, social history, political history, religious history, economic history, built character of local environments, and in some of the older publications, natural histories, geologies, ancient histories, and doomsday records about specific places or specific counties across England. The way that the VCH now works is that it's devolved by county. So there is a central office based in the Institute of Historical Research, of which I am part, and we support and promote the work of the county trusts that are conducting this research. So there are currently 21 active county trusts, and then we're also active in 2 ridings of Yorkshire, and they are raising money and conducting research into specific places within those counties. So a few more than are on this slide because we've recently had a few more county trusts develop. And they do this research and they work with local people to develop research, and then they'll produce various outputs. These could be projects with online outputs or events, but often it's publications. So we have our famous big red books, which are sort of big encyclopedic histories of a kind of a group of local parishes. And then there are shorter publications, including the EP publications, VCH shorts, now what we're referring to as partnership publications, which often cover just one place in lots of detail. Many of the VCH red books have been digitised and are freely available for anybody through British History Online. We're in the process of digitising many more of them at the moment as well. This little map shows you the kind of geographical range of where people have engaged with VCH red books online, and some stats and figures about how many people have seen them. So from its very inception in 1899, VCH projects have always had an element of knowledge exchange within them, by which I mean the people who were engaged in researching the VCH, who weren't necessarily always part of the academy, but were professional researchers. They were engaging with people outside of a kind of professional research context in this early 20th century period. So here's just one example here. The sports department of the VCH, who wrote some of the sports histories from the early volumes, sent out surveys to local golf clubs to gather information about their golf club and the nature of the course and that kind of thing. And then this is a letter that we have in the VCH, quite extensive VCH archive, which was written from a gardener who knew Westmoreland and was interested in the big Westmoreland project that the VCH was undertaking. And he saw that they were doing this project, and so offered them some of his own research into the history of one of the families in the local area. So you can see that from the very beginning there was this collaboration between members of the local public and then the professional researchers working on the project. From the late 20th century and into the 21st century, there's been a more formalised approach to trying to ensure that members of local communities are really heavily involved in the ways in which VCH work is written. And one of our mantras in central office is we want these histories of place to be places that are recognisable to the people who live in them. So we want them to read the history and be like, oh yes, even if I didn't know all of that stuff about the medieval part of the place's history, I recognise what's being written about its more recent history. So to make this possible, different counties engage with members of the local community in different ways. And this is just a few examples. So VCH Leicestershire ran a project called Charnwood Roots, where they worked with local community archaeology groups, local history societies, local museums and archives to gather online digitised data about the history of the local area, so archival material, to do community archaeological research into the Charnwood Forest area, and also to develop new oral histories about the local area and bring all those people who were interested in the history of the Charnwood Forest area together to network, to be able to work together. The Cumbria County History Trust, which covers areas of Cumberland, Westmoreland, Lancashire and West Yorkshire, they have a group of volunteers who draft histories of specific settlements in the area, and then those get worked up to produce some of their publications. About 10 years ago, they produced the Cumbria Historical Gazetteer. The idea is you could have it in your glove compartment of your car as you're driving around, and it's just got some of the really basic information about each of the settlements in the area that the Cumbria County History Trust is kind of interested in. And all of this was work done by local volunteer researchers. Similarly, in Essex, the Clacton VCH group is a group of volunteers who are really interested in the history of Clacton. They get trained up to be able to do research into the local area, and they do projects and events about the history of the area. Most recently in Wiltshire, one of the Wiltshire researchers, Louise Ryland-Epton, has been conducting research into various rural parishes around Chippenham as part of research into a Big Red Book about that area. But while she's been doing that, she's been building a relationship with local people. And while Big Red Books, these encyclopedia things, are often aimed at academic audiences to provide sort of foundational general background research from which they can develop more kind of historical narratives and arguments, it became clear that the local community also wanted the VCH research to be presented in a way which was easy for them to engage with. So she's produced these two books and is working on further publications that are similar, which were aimed at a local community but were also produced in collaboration with that community. So the local parish council was responsible for raising some of the funds for these. The Bremhill Parish Council book also had Heritage Lottery funding as well, but also the contents of these books is shaped by what those local people thought was most interesting or most important, and they include information from community and family archives that Louise only found as the result of building relationships with the local community. In the summer just gone, we've also done a survey with the VCH community to gather more data and evidence about the ways in which they're engaging in knowledge exchange. So this asked all of our VCH county trusts questions about ways in which they were engaging with those 7 aspects of knowledge exchange identified by the KEF, or the Knowledge Exchange Framework. And some of the strengths that really came about were public and community engagement. All of the trusts who responded are in doing some sort of public and community engagement, whether that's through social media campaigns, public talks, attending history fairs, and engaging local people in research projects. So you can see that some of this is more like knowledge transfer, so sharing the information that they're gathering through their research, but some of it really is very collaborative. Research partnerships, this is something that all of the county trusts who responded are engaging with. These are very bespoke and dependent upon the geographical specificities of the counties and where they're working in England, but include partnerships with Historic England, local universities and researchers, local archives and heritage services, which is really important. They collaborate a lot with the archives that they're working in, and local history and other study groups. And then another thing that VCH Network does really well is the provision of training or continued professional development. So they're running training sessions either specifically for their volunteers or for the local community more generally. So helping them, giving them the tools to study the history of places in which they live. And often these training sessions are done in collaboration with local archives and heritage services, because that helps the local archives to be able to train up the people who are coming and using their resources. And finally, just really quickly, we identified several aspects of VCH KE work that has potential for further development. So local growth and regeneration, lots of our county trusts sort of aspire to do this, see the potential to do this. And there are some excellent models like the work that Louise Ryland-Epton has been doing in collaboration with local parish councils, where it's clear that doing research into that local area can help with kind of promoting the tourist economy in that area, or thinking about other ways to sort of tell narratives about identity and the cultural importance of that area. And it's just worth noting here that in 2023, the historical consultant David Suden wrote a report on the VCH, and in that report he highlighted how VCH research has helped to develop local pride and place, either because people were engaging in the research or through the way that they read and engaged with the research after it had been published. And then also we identified lots of potential for working with businesses, the public and the third sectors. Most of our researchers are really based in these local areas that they are researching, so they have really good relationships with local businesses and charities and public sector bodies, and they're using those relationships to help raise funds, but also to identify potential collaborative and mutually beneficial products. So hopefully this is just a whirlwind introduction into the way in which the VCH kind of always has been a knowledge exchange project, but has huge potential to continue developing the way in which it is collaborating with people beyond the academy.